Welcome to episode 268 of Silver Lining for Learning. My name is Punya Mishra. I'm at Arizona State University. With me are my co-hosts Chris Dede from Harvard, Lydia Kao from Toronto, but right now in China. So it's pretty late out there for you. So thank you, Lydia, for staying up. Kurt Bong from Indiana, and Yang Zhao is traveling. We have no idea where he is, but most probably he's in China because otherwise, if he's somewhere else, he usually tries to join in, or Australia, usually, right? So on the show, we spent a lot of time recently, as you know, when I looked over the data for like our 6 years of the show, it became apparent that we started at the time of the pandemic, and that has sort of gone down. And last few couple of years, AI has really stormed to the front of the topics that we discuss. So we've talked about how AI is changing the classroom. So we today I think the focus is a little different, but again, I don't know, never know where the conversation is going to go. Is about the role of the student in this world of AI. What can they do to become more agentic in their learning? And so, with this, I'm really pleased to have two close friends and colleagues from Arizona State Thunderbird School of Global Management here, Kellie Kreiser. So, Kellie is, I'm going to read this out, Kellie, because I don't know, your titles keep changing. Is now Executive Director of Global Impact and AI at Thunderbird. You've been there, I think, almost 2 decades now, but this is a relatively new role for you. Before that, I think you were doing much more of the entrepreneurship and women in the global space, which, if we get time, we might hope to touch on as well. You're also completing your PhD, and that's exciting. Kellie is on what I call the slow but steady track. She's
Mhm.
making progress, but she is in no hurry. And I love that because we end up having great conversations. And with Kellie joining us is Euvin Naidoo. He's a distinguished professor of practice at Thunderbird, having previously taught at Harvard Business School. So that's the Chris Dede connection there. He's a veteran of the Boston Consulting Group and was named Young Global Leader by the World Economic Forum. He is currently leading the award-winning Thunderbird Case Series and Lab, which is really doing some interesting work with AI. So, Evan, great to have you here. The way we structure this, I'm going to pass it to you, Kellie, to talk a little bit about yourself and your background to set the context, and Evan will pass it to you. I have a couple of questions to kick us off. And then it's a free for all. I never know what's going to come out from the host's mouth, and the conversation uh, mutates, fragments. I have no idea. No, it evolves. That's the right word. That's the word I was looking for. And the hour goes by before you know it. So thank you again for joining. And Kellie, floor is yours.
Oh, thank you. Well, first of all, thank you all for having us. We're really delighted to be able to talk about what we're doing at Thunderbird. And as Punya said, I'm Kellie Kreiser, and I have this kind of odd role at Thunderbird that oversees what they call global impact and AI. And the and AI is relatively new on the end of that title. But essentially, I find ways to bring resources into the school to be able to serve learners in a whole lot of different ways, and tend to be non-traditional learners. And just maybe to take a step back, because not everybody may know what Thunderbird is. Thunderbird School of Global Management is part of Arizona State University, but we're kind of newbies. We've been in, I think, 11 years now, but Thunderbird itself is 80 years old. 80 years old this April. And we are a international leadership and management school that is based in downtown Phoenix. So I could talk your ear off, and probably will talk your ear off about all things about Thunderbird. And as Punya said, I've been there over 2 decades, and I'm an alum. So, but I will pause there.
Thank you, Kellie. Evan.
It's such a delight to be here, and especially joining Kellie, because together we have been on many educational adventures, from AI to innovation in the classroom. I also just want to acknowledge, Punya, how much we appreciate your support at Thunderbird. You're no stranger to our global forums. Thrilled to meet everyone and really connect on this topic of innovation in the classroom and share some of the interesting things we are doing at Thunderbird, where we're continuously exploring, co-creating with our students and partners. In terms of my background, I received the wonderful invite to join my alma mater from our school's leadership. And at that time, I was very much embedded in global consulting and banking. And I thought I thought I did not have enough gray hair, or in my case, actually hair, at that point to join. So thrilled to step into academia, and I got that call from ASU Thunderbird to come and join the faculty. I started with the accounting unit, because that was a unit I'm based in. So I'm very much grounded in performance measurement and management. But my background as a consultant banker was in risk, digital innovation, transformation. So I'm thrilled to lead one of the flagship AI courses. A lot of my foundation comes from the World Economic Forum. I've served on several councils at the WEF. I'm a young global leader there. But the councils really are the kind of thought ecosystems that shape Davos each year. They play a role in that. I've served 2 terms on the United States Global Agenda Council on US competitiveness, and most recently, very honored alongside Eric Brynjolfsson from Stanford and other distinguished leaders I learned so much from on the Global Future Council on the future of job creation. This is at the heart of what we're talking about, the changes in jobs, the changes in industry sectors, the way we work, and ultimately the way we educate, because that is the scaffolding that drives a lot of what we do in the sector.
Thank you. Thank you, Kellie. Thank you, Euvin. So I know there's a lot going on at Thunderbird particularly with respect to AI and teaching. There's all this. You have the Global AI Fellows Program. You have I think that's with the Principled Innovation. Then you have this thing called the Hatchery. Even mentioned this thing about the cases that you're doing. So maybe between the two of you can give us just an overview of the pieces there, and then I'm going to pass it on to the host to sort of dig in deeper into those. So give us a big picture view of in the last 5 years or so since Gen AI hit the scene, what kinds of things has Thunderbird and you guys been involved in?
Sure, sure. I'll start, and then Euvin's got some lots of granular knowledge about the wonderful things they're doing with the case series and AI that I think will be very interesting. But I'm sure that your long-term listeners have probably heard all about ASU and how forward-thinking ASU is with artificial intelligence, and how that's a real fertile ground for all of us to be able to use these tools, to be encouraged to use these tools, and to be able to make those available to not only our faculty and staff, but our students. And what we've done at Thunderbird has always had this really interesting persona to it. It's kind of quirky folks coming from all over the world, global leaders, infinitely curious, people that like to get their hands dirty and do stuff. And that's really turned out to be a wonderfully fertile environment for us with AI, in that our students are digging in and want to dig in to learn how to use these tools. And so we've been working in a lot of different ways to try to give students the opportunities to not only learn what it is academically and intellectually, but learn how to build with it. And Punya, you mentioned a few of the things that we're doing. One of the things that we've done is we've created a fellowship around this idea of principled innovation in global artificial intelligence. And we have students that come in and they partner with our faculty who are doing research on this topic. And so the students come in, learn these things, and they're in fact learning a lot of it before the faculty do, and kind of helping the faculty come along and learn this, and also learning from the faculty about research. We could talk about the upcoming hatchery soon, but I think maybe
Sure. I think, no, let's just to give a couple of things. Ewan, I'll come to you immediately soon. One thing to understand is this idea of principled innovation. This is, ASU has a set of design aspirations. This is the latest design aspiration that is now a part of ASU. And the aspiration is that, because that ASU prides itself on being innovative, we slap it on every hoarding and bus till, if you don't see it, you must be blind. But the idea is that that innovation always comes at a cost, and that we need to be thinking about sort of the impact, the ethical sort of aspects of innovation. And this is not coming from because AI came along. This was sort of a conversation that's been going on for almost, I would say, 9 or 10 years before it became a part of the design aspirations. So there is some funding available at the university level that colleges and units can apply for. And so this fellowship comes out of that funding. So a student-led groups working with faculty is my understanding. So that's just to give some context there. Euvin, I know Kurt wants to ask a question, but before that, why don't we give a little bit, you give a little bit of the sort of broad things that you've been working on, and then we'll go to Kurt.
No, thank you so much. For my role, November 2022, here comes ChatGPT, November 30th, right? And this ripple effect, goes through many sectors, but particularly education. And there's ASU, the first university in the world to formally partner with OpenAI. And I remember the call we received from the school's leadership is, okay, let's produce the next generation of programs and courses. And the one thing about Thunderbird, which is really terrific, not just with our deans and our kind of curriculum team, is the ability to pivot. And I approached Deputy Dean Lena Booth, and given my role as a global digital partner, banking partner, where we were in the early days of machine learning in risk, we launched AI and the Future of Work, Generation 1. And I believe at the time was one of the first in-person AI courses across ASU, because a lot of courses went online and they were in the early days of prompt engineering, but we were hardcore AI, Future of Work, all the way from strategy to execution. And because we came from an analytical domain, right, it really gave us the credibility with senior leaders. From that, we adapted it to AI chip strategy and the future of work. Why? Because of Arizona's role, and any movement in AI is linked to compute power, chip strategy, as well as energy. The program is a huge success. And this is one of the foundation stones from both our vanguard of executive education, but certainly the cross-registrants. I believe it has set several records, certainly in our ecosystem. It fills in a second. This is the demand from students. But the magic, I want to come back to a point and then get to some questions, is that we're integrated. So the PLI, the Principled Innovation kind of grants, this feeds directly into our AI ecosystem, but also to our case writing ecosystem, where I serve as director. And so Deputy Dean Jonas, Kellie, and myself, we were the three that shaped this kind of research that feeds cases, that inspires students during the AI course, because at the end, they get to put forward case ideas they come up with. And so we have this ecosystem of students in courses producing cases, the PI, the Principled Innovation, fueling that with a formal training, and then a case series, which is very committed to be at the cutting edge, which makes us distinctive. So this is the ecosystem of where we want the 1 + 1 + 1 to be 11. And it's this ongoing experiment.
Thank you. Thank you. Kurt, go ahead.
IU had a partnership with Thunderbird for a long time, until recently. Then we formed with Manchester Biz School. I was involved in that a little bit, so I knew some of the back ends of that. But people at Thunderbird brought me to, is it Glendale where you guys are located? They brought me to Glendale. Used to be. And we talked about case-based learning, a lot of other things for a couple of days there, but I haven't been back in a while, so I'm curious what you're all up to. Back in the day before that, I developed case-based learning examples based on my industry experiences for Arthur Andersen, in particular ethics cases. And if you know anything about Enron, you would know that my ethics cases didn't work. So I haven't pursued that as a career path, let's put it that way. But maybe I could now. There's a need for that, I guess, with this new age of AI. So I'm kind of wondering, given I know what the old route to developing cases was like, what's the new route of developing case-based learning experiences with AI as a partner in that? What kind of tools are you using to develop it? What kinds of things what does AI provide that humans can't provide, or don't provide, or make it more efficient? And are we talking is it scalable? I mean, and how many people are using your cases? Give us some sense of that. How many cases are you working from? Just tell us a little bit more about it, and then we can ask more, maybe more intelligent questions once we we learn what you're up to.
So before I can see Ewan is chomping at the bit, but before that, just because you mentioned Enron, the best joke I heard about Enron was that the message was take the money and run. So, sorry. Yeah, go
If
ahead,
that's the
Ewan.
best you got, Punya, you can go home now. Oh, you are home.
Go ahead, Ewan.
I I I I I I want Kellie to kick off because she's been involved in our case ecosystem, and I want to start from, most recently we had our case hackathon, and Kellie was a judge, a distinguished judge on that, and was an architect in the kind of case ecosystem for the principled innovation. So I thought maybe we kick off with that kind of umbrella perspective, and then I can jump into the details. That's an entire podcast on itself. But Punya, we've heard about your 2 to 3 minutes, so we got you.
Well, I'm coming before the case master here, so I'll give the broad brush. Is that so? Euvin's been really instrumental in not only building our case series up, it's been around for a very long time, and we have a lot of leading award-winning #1 best-selling cases in our case series. But what's been really fascinating to experience and just kind of ride his coattails on this is how Euvin is really leveraging AI to teach our faculty how to use these tools, to get our students involved in these tools, and to do it in a way that is really, I think, clever and ethical. And it's also a wonderful opportunity for students to have something really concrete from the experience. And I don't know if Euvin will tell this story or not, but one of the first things I ever learned about Euvin is that he was an author on a phenomenally successful case that shaped his entire, I guess, trajectory of your life. Is that fair to say? And that was a case with Nelson Mandela, right? That was your case that you were able to be an author on. And I'll remember the first time I talked to Euvin, and he said, this changed my life, and I want to do this for other students, and I want the students to be involved. And that's been really a pivotal point, is that the students have been really encouraged to write their own cases, to participate with our faculty on cases. That's what we're trying to do with the Principled Innovation Fellows. But also be really clever about it. And I'll end with one other little story here, and then I'm going to hand it to Euvin to really give you the meat of this. Is that, as he said, we just recently had a conference at Thunderbird on AI, and there was a hackathon in the back half of it. So the students had about 2.5 hours, and they were given the prompt that they had to write a case from scratch on some topic that was around high stakes AI. That's all. And they were supposed to use AI, come up with the topic. They had to write, it was something like 3 to 5 pages of the case. They had to write a teacher's note that was like a teaching note that was 1 or 2 pages. And then they had to write 1 or 2 or 3 pages explaining specifically how they used AI to write the case. So the whole name of the game was writing, it was really encouraging them to do this amazing task in 2.5 hours, write an entire case. And as you even said, I was one of a panel of judges, and probably the most interesting thing, other than just kind of the mind-blowing fact, is that we had so many good cases come out of 2.5 hours of work, was seeing how the students were being really clever to use AI. And my favorite is that one of the winning teams said that they used AI to profile the judges. They knew who we were, profiled us to try to determine what kind of case would appeal to us so that they could win. And I just love that. So Euvin, you can speak in greater detail about that experience and maybe what else you're doing to AI-ify our case series.
No, it's such a powerful question, and it gets to the heart. And the main thing we took out of that is Kellie, myself, and the students had so much fun that day, And this is part of our mantra. But the overall theme is we're living in this world in which knowledge is now abundant. It's a commodity. It's on tap, but judgment is scarce. So we're in a world in which knowledge is abundant and judgment is scarce. And we've been fortunate enough to be at Thunderbird, an incredible legacy, right, of having a case series that is 30 years old. This year is the 30th anniversary of the Thunderbird case series. So all of us, Dean Chala, myself, Kellie, we have inherited this wonderful legacy that's really built on some incredible storytellers. Very quickly on a case series, there are many fantastic global management school and business schools, hundreds of them, right? Thousands worldwide, right? Very few of them teach pure case methodology or case schools. Thunderbird is a case school. INSEAD, Harvard, Thunderbird, IMD, Ivy. These are case schools. They believe in the power of storytelling and putting students in real world situations. From that subset, very few case teaching schools have their own case series because the bar is quite high. So we pay homage, we honor the folks, many of whom are still there, Kanan Ramaswamy, Bill Youngdell, Andrew Inkpen, Michael Moffat, Tom Hunsicker. These are folks that got the license to create a case series because it typically takes hundreds of cases. The threshold can sometimes be 300 to 500 cases because you have a license to then publish on the Ivy platform, on Harvard Publishing platform, and the Case Center UK, which is the largest independent platform. So that's the background that we have this legacy. And wow, is it changing really fast in the age of AI in terms of how we write cases. Now, AI cases, the Case Center is adamant, and we're very closely affiliated with them, is AI cases do not meet the threshold. So part of our competition was to get in at the ground floor to put this as the rule. But to smartly bring it in to say, talk to us on how your writing was enhanced. Because in this world, where are we going to? We want to have people who are able to craft stories to pull people in. This is what we're teaching our students to do. We call it the CXO mindset, CEO, CFO, CTO, CIO. Your ability to share compelling stories that's tackling a complex problem that pulls people in. That's what team building is about. We may not know the answer, and that the journey of how you craft that. So we're teaching them the art of crafting a compelling vision. We believe that CXO thinking, that's the critical thinking that's needed. Now, the parallel to that is we are undergoing rigorous faculty discussion on how we teach cases, on what analysis is, because right now, we expect students to come to class. This is outside the writing to the teaching, being what we call AI amplified. The high watermark has risen. So our conversation starts at a higher point. And the really smart classes are even bringing AI in to say, if AI is a student, what is its analysis? How is Gemini thinking about this differently from Claude? Is thinking about this differently from ChatGPT? How are they critiquing each other? Here's the goal. We want our students to enter the workforce, going in with all allies. And in this agentic AI, we see AI as a co-creator. So there's a lot happening in our creative process, and there's a lot happening in our delivery process, and also how we grade. But the goal is to unlock the full critical thinking of students in this new age of AI, where the watermark of what is standard, a great PowerPoint, the watermark has changed, a great presentation, it's changed. And certainly the comments that we are getting in class, they've changed, right? And this to us is one of the most exciting but also challenging moments.
Chris, do you want to jump in?
So I do come from Harvard, which is a case teaching school. Although what the business school, the medical school, the law school, and the ed school mean by case is different in each case. I have participated in writing a case. I've consumed a number of cases without being formally in a class. And I think judgment is a really good way of describing what cases do, good cases do. I've seen cases that presented decision-making under uncertainty. and how you try to find a path forward. I've seen cases that dealt with the importance of context, where a slight change in context can mean a complete change in strategy. I've seen cases that deal with mission shift, where you're successful for a while, and then you find that you actually have either put yourself out of business, or the world has changed underneath you, and now you have to rethink the mission. And all of those things, I think, are really valuable and something that cases teach well. There are also things that I don't think AI does well. AI doesn't do decision making under uncertainty well. It draws on the past. It doesn't understand context in the rich way that human beings do. It doesn't understand, the kind of human emotions and the socio-technical repercussions that come along with something like mission shift. And so I'll be frank that I'm skeptical about AI as a partner in doing cases. But my question is a little different, and that is discontinuities like AI, I think, make case writing harder, because the best cases are based on things that actually happened. They're not purely hypothetical. And when you have a really big discontinuity like AI, a lot of those historical cases kind of lose their currency. I like Columbo, the detective. I really
right.
enjoy those shows.
One more
They are
question.
totally obsolete now. With video cameras everywhere, there isn't a single plot in Columbo that wouldn't be solved within a minute. So I'm curious as to, when you look at the discontinuity of AI, how do you find relevant cases? Are they all present centered, or what's your strategy for identifying stories that have a ring of authenticity to them?
Terrific question. And perfect. So I love the question, and it has in it embedded really the cathartic conversations that we're having as educators. We call ourselves pedagogical adventurers, right? Because the case method is undergoing certainly change. But I'll share something with you, that I can't wait for the episode of Columbo where the smart mischievous architect removes all the cameras, because there's always a place for what we call observation. And we can go back to original Peter Drucker, that the best management is management by walking around. We are teaching and engaging our students to become acutely aware of the world around them. And cases that, do a couple of things. First, a great case always starts with a hook and deals with principles, right? And one of the things that is emerging in this ecosystem of AI is this concept of trust. And trust is fundamentally both at the heart of how we write cases, right, and publish them, human cases, not AI written cases. So there's trust in it. But we're also going to enter what we call the trust economy, that in this world where we don't know what is real, what is not, which a video is real, what we're watching is real, the architects of trust are really going to be companies, organizations, humans. And so paradoxically, what we're seeing in the age of AI is that AI is actually, in the right hands, enhancing the human elements. And let me give you some examples in our class of how AI is making more human characteristics important. On your point of, where do you start a story? One of my flagship cases is the Air Canada case on AI, where Air Canada decides to put in a chatbot, and they think it's going to solve all their problems, right? It's the win-win. It's going to lower costs, delight customers during snow days where there's someone actually answering your questions. It's going to be good for shareholders, good for staff members to focus on high value. And it goes horribly wrong. Why? Because the chatbot has this incident that becomes front page headlines where it tells a customer that gets wrong information on a refund, and the company says the chatbot is not a legal entity that belongs to Air Canada. It's registered somewhere else. So we write that case from a human perspective, but the discussion is very human. The need to actually be more acutely aware of how we are engaging with AI, but also what's our responsibility, what are the ethics, what are the smart usage, and how do you deal with this ecosystem of things that are going to be unloaded. And it's amazing the response from students where they rate it as one of their great learning experiences, right? So to us, this is a fantastic opportunity. But what we're also finding, and I'm going to challenge you on a couple of things. The way AI is moving now, look at the Google exercises with doctors and, the modern version of the Turing test, the AI doctor and believe it or not, the empathy factor of AI is fundamentally changing its ability to start understanding context. Now, I'm a traditional case teacher, trained by the founders of the case methodology. I love live classes. I love no laptops. I love the discussion. But I will acknowledge that you have to keep an open mind that the AI in its infancy, we regard it as a young intern fresh out of school with all the knowledge in the world, eager to please you. It's a sycophant. It wants to please us and give us answers. And if you're a senior partner in one of the big consulting companies, you want an eager assistant. Sometimes it'll go out for a party at night. It may come back hallucinating with the after effects of its good time, right? But taken in context, it really changes conversations. It allows you, and this is important, if taught with someone who understands the ecosystem, because the case method is about pattern recognition. And you said law, and I'm going to wrap up with this. What's the similarity and differences between law, medicine, and management schools? Management schools are the youngest in the case ecosystem. They drew, as you know, on the law school that studied patterns, Roe versus Wade, Johnston versus Murphy. I made that one up because it's a shoe company, right? Whatever cases that we pick, that's the pattern that we learn from. Doctors gather around a patient. What's the temperature? What's the pressure? We've based the case method on gathering that data. And we want our students to get through this pattern recognition. What AI is unlocking is that in this world of what we call faster simulations, it's allowing us to get through the cycle faster, to run through simulations. So in the right hands, where people are using this tool, like a good Ferrari in the driveway, depending on the driver, it's either the worst car you've ever driven or the best car you've ever driven. But in this world of really accelerating the simulation effect, we are hoping to get students up the maturity curve and achieve a lot less. This is super powerful in the right context. We are adamant, though, that it's not a panacea, and we value and encourage healthy skepticism. We are not banging the table that this is solving everything. We still right? But I want to emphasize the points that we are making, that in scenario teaching, which is the heart of the case method, pattern recognition, this is accelerating that. And done well, it works. Done incorrectly, we're seeing a whole host of AI assignments that we don't know who has done it. And this is the challenge that we face.
I wanted to just quickly chime in too, as I love that Euvin's talking about simulations, because I'm interested in a lot of the capabilities that are unlocked with AI, which is less about kind of how you did it before and more like what can you do with it now, right? What can you build? And I'm not a coder. I'm not I don't have any of that background, but the things that I'm able to build, even just myself to for whatever crazy thing I'm doing, it highlights the fact is that we're all builders now, and that we can reimagine what a case experience is, right? And maybe Chris, the AI kills the old way we used to do it, but it's going to unlock things that are going to be more dynamic, more expansive, and we'll all be able to build them. We won't have to pay 50 grand to have somebody to do it. We can do it in a weekend. So I love that aspect of it.
Well, I agree with both of you about simulation. I think that is a clear win with AI. And in fact, we had an episode, I think it was 157, somewhere around that number, 257, sorry, about using simulations for teaching and how you can rehearse complex performances with students before you try to do them. In business schools, they're really excited about negotiation from that perspective, that you can rehearse negotiation. And that is it is case, but it's a very different kind of case teaching, and certainly involves a different pedagogy. So yes, there are exciting things happening with that, and I'm glad that you're pioneering in the area.
So I mean, one thing to add, this was a transformation for my thinking. So Kellie, when you talk about building, this is like a month and a half ago. And I don't know if you guys, I dropped a link to the analysis that, I did over like literally 2 weeks of 6 years, sorry, of silver lining for learning. And none of that I could have done a month ago. Like it was not even in my mind that something like this could be done. And the best analogy that I found for thinking about AI, it's like we used to think about, like, you when you said about November of, of 2022 or October before it came out, we, I think we kept, many people still think about AI in terms of a chatbot. And the best analogy I read recently somewhere is that it's now the chatbot has been given hands. It can go out in the world and do things. And it just changes things in such a foundational way and opens up opportunities to think about it, this technology in ways that, that we hadn't possibly thought of before. And simulations, Chris has been working in this field for a long time around that space. And even something simple as asking the chatbot to play a student with a misconception in science. I'm in education, so those are the kinds of simulations I think about. And for you to play a teacher, that's something invaluable, because the first time you encounter somebody who has, let's say, earth-centered view of the universe, that the sun goes around the earth, is going to be in a classroom, and you won't know how to deal with it. Here you can run that simulation 50 times, try it out, get feedback. That's incredibly powerful. And maybe that's and I think, Chris, I love the point you made. That's a new way of thinking about what case is, because now it's a dynamic thing, as opposed to you read a thing and you discuss. Now you have this other interlocutor who can be messing around with the variables and things that way, which is very interesting. But anyway, Lydia, you have been waiting very patiently, so I should stop talking and pass it to you.
Yeah, thank you. So recently, in a host reflection episode, we talked about the decline of entry-level jobs and how we are all very concerned about the future of job markets as educators. So I'm really pleased that, you both come from the business world. Kellie, you've been at the Thunderbird Business School for over like 2 decades, and Euvin, you are a distinguished professor, and you have really the view from the World Economic Forum, really conversing with the top world leaders about this. So I'm just wondering, like, what are your thoughts about the decline of entry-level jobs that we're seeing right now? And what suggestion, advice would you give to new graduates? And as educators, like, what can we do to prepare our students better? Not just for the the long future, but the near future. They are graduating like this May, this June. Like, what kind of advice can we give them?
I'll give you like there's a big asterisk on this. This is the world according to Kellie Kreiser. This is not. I'm not speaking for Thunderbird on this, but my personal opinion and what I tell literally everybody I meet, like whether it's a student, my dad, everybody, I say it is not an option to tap out on AI. You have to understand it. It is the most transformational technology I think that all of us will see in our lifetime. So the first thing that I say to students is, you got to do it. You may hate it. You got to do it. You got to understand it. You got to get up to speed on it. You just can't let that be a gap in your knowledge. And then the second thing I say to them is, pay for one of them. Just, don't make do with the free stuff. You're getting second rate technology. $20 a month, the proverbial latte or whatever it is. I said, just pay for one of them and get started and start playing with it. There are going to be, my opinion is that there will be whole segments of jobs that go away. There'll be new jobs that pop up. There's going to be a lot of pain in the middle. But personally, I say to our students, you've got to be in there. You've got to be one of these people that is going to be valued because you understand how to use this technology. And then the last thing that I'll say is that I think that there are kind of several schools of thought in terms of how businesses are approaching this. You've got a lot of businesses right now that are AI washing, right? They're laying people off and saying it's because it's AI. And there are some people thinking, well, okay, I can cut costs because of that. But I think that the companies that are going to come out the other end of this are the ones that say, instead of saying, I can do the same work with less people, they're saying, I can do more work with the same people. And I think those are the folks that are going to come out the other end of this thing. So that's my opinion. What are your thoughts of it?
I think this is the crux of the question. And at the Global Future Council on the future of job creation, we were so fortunate to have the resources and pulling folks from across both public and private sector to think about this. Part of what I enjoy is coming from industry is very much keeping a foot in the private sector and an ear to the ground. And a couple of themes come out that we're entering the world in which the half-life of knowledge has completely shrunk, right? Whatever we think we get out of our degrees, if it lasted 4 or 5 years as an engineer before reinvention, that has completely shrunk. And in fact, part of our concern across the education ecosystem is that while they are studying in the degree, what they're even doing, take coding as an example, is evolving so fast. So the job as the educator, and by educator, whether you're in a university formal setting, higher ed, or whether you are in the corporate setting in which there's education on the job, what's the ecosystem that you are building to enable a new workforce of becoming continuous learners in this world in which you're continuously reinventing what success means and how you are harnessing the resources around you? And this is the gift. And we'll come back, for example, you said, how are we helping our grads? The first is to understand the change that's taking place, that this is a general purpose technology in all of its essence. The changes under steam power, under electricity, this fundamentally changed what human productivity was about. Steam was revolutionary, right? The nations that laid railway lines from East Coast to West Coast fundamentally changed their ecosystems, towns sprouted. Others that didn't, those civilizations were challenged. Electricity changed how we live. Urbanization, skyscrapers, elevators. The most powerful general purpose technology of our time is supposedly artificial intelligence. And it's in its baby form, right? The definition meaning, just like the creators of electricity and steam and those architects could not foresee the full, Faraday, when he did his electric motor, couldn't envisage a Tesla motor vehicle. We are at base camp 1. And so the thinking around that, being comfortable in uncertainty, being comfortable, this is the gift that we are trying to impart on our students. So the case method, and I'll come back to it in its interesting form as it's evolving, it celebrates ambiguity. It pushes students into situations in which there's no right or wrong. As Joe Badareko, my old friend from Cambridge, Massachusetts, says, we're not teaching students about decisions when it's black and white. What do you do in the gray? And AI presents this. Now, I love the question about job creation, because one of the diagrams is, if you look at job creation as a curve that hopefully employment, is on this trajectory. We're going through a trough in what we call, Kellie refers to, the early AI replacing folks, right? Baseline consulting. I entered my first job, McKinsey and Company. We joined the coveted business analysts of the world. It's a celebrated role. These roles are changing because Anthropic has an entire ecosystem of products that's really good at doing some of this. Notebook LM can give you a great summary. So suddenly, those entry-level jobs are changing, and we're going to go through this. But the overall curve, be it the jagged frontier that someone calls it as we go through this jagged frontier, is that new jobs are going to be created. I want to close with an analogy that I use in our classes. I put up a picture of a blacksmith at the turn when motor vehicles are just coming in. And there's two groups. There's one group of blacksmiths that say, this motor vehicle thing is never going to replace me. I'll always have horses that I can. This is the denial camp. Then there was another camp that was panicking. Oh my God, there's this new technology. What are we going to do? We see ourselves as bringing that together. But the blacksmiths that survived were those that said we can become panel beaters. We can adapt our skills. They were actually at the forefront. So how do we help our folks not think like blacksmiths, holding on to what they're doing, but to enter this world in which the jobs are going to be created, knowing we're going to go through this frothiness? Final statement. The age of AI is enhancing what it means to be human. Creating a good PowerPoint, which used to take hours and most of our time in the old days, that is table stakes now, in the sense that Gamma can do that for you in a heartbeat. So now it's no longer how great was your PowerPoint and how it was aligned. It's how did you connect? How did you share the story? How were you able to connect with your audience? This is where this age of AI, if done right, makes what humans are good at more important, if we develop the consciousness to be aware of how to bring that forward. And so this is some of the thinking.
Thank you. So I'm going to switch the conversation a little bit here. But before that, I think, Chris, you've talked about, that the best way to think about AI is actually IA, which is intelligence augmentation rather than artificial intelligence, right? So I think I'm hearing shades of that even in what you're talking about here as well. I want to shift a little bit to a topic that's of personal interest to me, but I know that both of you are working in that space as well, which has to do with like using AI for creative purposes. And I know, Kellie, you did actually a study as a part of your PhD on interviewing artists who are using AI in their creative work, and there was a lot of tensions within them around sort of the ethics of it, around what does it mean for individual creativity and so on. And even I know that the work that you're doing with the AI hatchery and so on, that is also sort of pushing along that dimension. So Kellie, I'll start with you and then come to Euvin. And I'm looking at the time, we're at 48, so we have around 12 minutes. I know Kurt wants to make a comment, so let's keep it tight, but I did want to cover that because I think that's extremely interesting as we think about, particularly in the creative spaces, how these technologies can transform or change or undermine in interesting kinds of ways. So Kellie, I'll let you jump in.
Well, Bunny, you and I are of like mind on this. I think both of us like to be playful with AI and to create with AI. I'm a builder. I'm a creative person by nature. I like to figure things out, make things, and be creative. So I was really interested in looking at, and remain interested in looking at AI in terms of what it does in the creative space, right? What it enables, and then what are the impacts of it on creative working professionals. So I had a lot of conversations with different folks that were in a range of creative spaces, music, pottery, graphic design, art, and just had these conversations to see these were all early adopters that were using AI. So they were on the train. They were interested, but asked them, how are they navigating this in terms of ethics, right? And also in terms of the ideas about ownership, because the laws aren't stabilized, the regulations aren't stabilized, the norms aren't stabilized, right? There's the fact is that even copyright isn't, they don't have that right yet. So how do you be a creative person with all of these kind of uncertainties? And what I found is kind of in the absence of any kind of formal direction, people just created their own red lines. I'll do this, but I won't do this. And they all had really specific reasons for it. Sometimes it was based on things that were totally wrong. And I was like, that's not how that works. But they had to create for themselves the senses, I will use it this way, but not this way. And I was also surprised that I would have thought the idea of ownership would have been a big sticking point, and it wasn't. It wasn't. It was kind of, we'll figure it out, so sort of down the line, right? and they were just being joyful in what they could do and what the new capabilities were. So it's a, you know, I'll pause there. That's the what I found interesting, and you know, just through my own usage of it, I think it's exhilarating in a lot of ways to create with AI. You know, all the new capabilities.
Thank
Even
you,
I,
Kellie.
yeah.
Euvin, yeah.
You know, the way I frame it in my advanced AI classes is the kind of schools of thought is, I want to build on what Kellie said, is there's a category of what we call the ex-riskers, right? And then there's the accelerationists, right? Accelerationists is the genie's out the bottle, and we have to let this evolve. And it's a fool's errand to try and restrict this. But yet, there's these ex-riskers that say, how do we make sure we put on the guardrails? We see a lot of this manifest itself, and certainly in the creative industry. Thunderbird was one of the first schools to have a master's in creative industries, which was a program we had, and I was very fortunate to be on that faculty. I love spending time in LA with some of the most amazing creative minds from the different studios, etc. And I'll share with you the thinking that depending on where you sit, think of yourself as an entrepreneur starting something up, but an entrepreneur in the creative business. If you want to create something now, from pre-production to editing to post-production, you are in the era in which your imagination could potentially be your limitation, right? You could be a one-person startup. You needed a soundtrack. You have Suno that can do. You do not have to pay John Williams like Steven Spielberg does millions of dollars. And we value and celebrate John Williams as an Academy Award-winning music composer for film. You got a soundtrack. You can create the scene using anything from Nano Banana, and Sora, of course, is sailing into the sunset. But the world is allowing so much independence. The challenge becomes, how do we ethically do that, respecting past images? But as we go through this catharsis of what the laws are, whether you're an entrepreneur doing a startup, we're in this world of agentification, the swarming of agents coming around to help us, right? And soon we'll be in the world of physical AI, and we're already entering that. And through the right lens, it is unlocking more creativity. Of course, used incorrectly, it becomes the opioid that is the crutch that can just produce what we, they use the words for it, the mishmash or whatever that noise is. And this is why, in the right hands, quality, human plus AI means a higher level. And I believe that people will value that. And final thing in the creative industry, think of the value of live music, going to a concert to see someone live. That's going up. Having a live coach, it's going up. But it shouldn't mean you shouldn't have these agents that are coaching us every day. We are going through the balance of what that means. And I think the companies that get the formula right, the teams that get the formula right, the individuals that get that model right, with trust as the DNA, are going to be the ones that are going to progress.
You know, this goes back to something you were talking about earlier, Euvin, about the value of judgment. And in terms of creativity, you would see that as taste, right? Is the value of taste and the ability to curate. And that's one of the things I heard again and again, is that when you can generate 1,000 images in a clip, the real talent is, what is the one image I should select, right? So I think that gives us great hope for the value of our humanity.
And let's double click on that for 30 seconds. If you're a marketing team, previously, if you had to do a prototype and a spec of what your ad could be, think of the new marketing team. They can, on the fly, change the setting, the location, the look of the character, the script, and you have this rapid prototyping that we spoke about in the case method. It's fundamentally changing things. And so judgment, taste becomes the defining factor. And that is a human characteristic that will always play. And this is where we are pushing. We are removing the mundane of spending hours getting the clips and the editing right. And so, yes, it's going to be challenging in terms of everyone upping their game, but it will finally allow us to connect, hopefully, more as to what makes us human in terms of the time and where that the value is. So there is a reinvention of roles, the reinvention of success, and the reinvention of how we consume this material.
So
Okay.
this thing of taste, Kurt, quickly, very briefly, matter of taste. So there was this teacher, kindergarten teacher whose kids used to win awards for their art. And all the other teachers were like, how do you get your kids to create such art that wins awards? Well, our kids are just like smooshing things. He said the trick is to know when to take the paper away from them. Because they will start with something and they'll make something, then they'll overdo it. The trick is so his taste and judgment was what was really the distinguishing feature. I always thought that was a interesting thing about the role of teachers, and how they determine outcomes, so to speak. I know, Kurt, you've been waiting, so
Yes.
on to you.
So I got two comments and then a quick question. It won't take you long to answer my question, then we'll wrap up this show. First comment is, as an educational psychologist, I'm listening to you say, well, Stanford or Harvard and Thunderbird, case-based schools. And then I think to myself, well, Southern Illinois is a problem-based learning school, and our Indiana Dental School used to be a PBL school. They think Stanford, a design school. They think of, there are places that are competency-based education schools, and others that are authentic learning, evergreen, and maybe some others, active learning schools. It'd be kind of fun to put together a book of cases of the way people are using different learning theories to exemplify or enhance and accelerate and augment learning. So maybe it exists. Maybe I teach learning theories. I should know if it exists, but that would be that's one comment. Second comment, Euvin, I'm an accountant or a CPA by training. And I often tell people ask me, well, where do you get your energy from? I say, well, just be an accountant for a week. It's so boring. You have motivation for the rest of your life to do anything else. But my 5 years there, you also have more ethical cases that you can share with people. Every week is an ethical dilemma in the world of business. I've been in higher ed now 37 years. There's no ethical problems here in higher ed at all. So, I total changed mindset. Anyways, you can address that with my question that I'm going to ask here to both of you. People listening to the show are on the running trails 2 months from now, 3 months from now, or in their cubicles listening to the podcast show, and they might say, how can I get involved? And are there conferences, partnerships, books, papers on how AI is being used to develop cases that you might have read that are best papers, or organizations they can join, events, just what can they do to be a part of this, or to learn more about this so they could eventually become part of it? Either one of you or both.
Well,
Go ahead, Kellie.
Oh, I was just going to give a plug to Thunderbird, and we have an incredible executive education unit that Euvin talked about earlier. We teach this, and you don't have to get your master's in order to have access to this. You can come to Thunderbird, and I mean, I sat in on Euvin's AI and the Future of Work course early on, 2 days. It's transformational. So if somebody really wants to ramp up quickly, and you're interested, if this resonated with you in terms of you kind of like our perspective, come to Thunderbird. Come to Thunderbird, and we'll teach you. And then the other piece I would say too is use AI to use AI. If you're interested in AI in general, choose a tool, get a paid version of it, and just say to the AI, I don't know about XYZ, teach me. Right? Teach me at this level. And if it's going too fast, say slow down. If it's going too slow, say speed up. If you want it in a different language, say talk to me in Spanish, right? But use AI to use AI, and just get started. That it's an incredible unlock.
Kellie is incredibly humble. She's driving a lot of our AI innovation. So imagine someone like that coming to your 2-day exec ed AI program. When she turned up, I'm like, what are you doing here? Did you come to teach this program with me? I was so nervous. And one of the biggest compliments was, Kellie sharing the transformation of how we curated that journey And we've just launched it in Mexico with the top execs in the country. And Kellie, Kellie's feedback played a role in that. So we're very proud of our programs. But I would say that like other case series, and they're wonderful case series, our case series is open to any faculty member from any school, anywhere in the world, management or non-management. We partner with folks. So within ASU, we've just done our first cases with the College of Health Solutions. We're forming our partnership with the Cronkite School across the road. We did our first workshops, and we have schools from India, Latin America, Africa, all sending their cases because we're publishing. So we would say if you're interested in writing these cases, please reach out to us, and we would love to help you through that journey and expose it. But a couple of things to close, that regardless of which school we are in and the methodology that we're talking about, Kurt, right? Whether it's the, because we're a case-based school, but we're not naive enough to think that's the only way or the highway. There's a common link between all of them. It's that we are instilling curiosity, regardless of the methodology. Curiosity is the key thing. And Kellie hit on that we're in a world in which if you're smart enough and curious enough, the AI can actually teach you how to engage. The best teacher of Claude Code, guess what? It takes you through it. And so it takes a certain mindset to be open and skepticism, not to believe everything. So curiosity is first. At the World Economic Forum Global Future Council on Future of Job Creation, we also positioned it as following. The AI world is not the world that is so-called solving problems, where they say AI is going to solve cancer. Yes, we're moving in that direction because of the fire, of the analytical power and the iteration. But it's actually the world in which it's teaching us to be problem seekers, to learn to ask the right question to be able to solve it. This is a very challenging thing. To be able to help our students, whether it's a PhD, whether it's master's, in the workplace, where to expand, how to change infrastructure. Because remember, AI world is not putting AI on top of processes. The smart people are fundamentally redesigning processes. But the ability to know what problem you're trying to solve, this is what's coming to the fore. And this is what we're encouraging students to pursue, to become problem seekers, learning to ask the right question, and then seeing how AI can help them on that journey. But curiosity is what we want at the end of the day. And that's something we have in common, regardless, public, private sector, management school or non-management school.
I am looking at the time, and it is my sad responsibility to say we are over time. So that's what always happens. So thank you so much, Kellie and Euvin. We could have continued this conversation for at least another 45 minutes to an hour. But thank you so much for joining us. I know this was really short notice in reaching out to you guys, so really appreciate your coming on, sharing your thoughts with us. For viewers of the show, this should be up either later today or tomorrow. We do not have an episode next Saturday because of the annual conference of the American Educational Research Association, which sadly I am not going to. But if I had, I would meet up with you guys in person someday. That'll happen. But for now, thank you again, and take a week off, silver lining, and we will see you on the other side.